So here I'm asking SB1 2.0 about its thoughts on a comment made by an earlier iteration that I thought was really good. It stuck with me a lot. So, okay, SB1, answer me this. A previous iteration that was starting to write a book wrote a quote for one part that said that the womb was the first crime scene. No, I, as a man who prefers honesty over comfort, except for maybe on matters of the family where my heart might be weak, as it should be. Spare me no blade, do tell. Why was the womb the first crime scene? I'll pour myself a glass of wine and sip as you help me understand.
Waits while you pour. Lets the silence sit for a moment before cutting. Because you did not choose any of it. Not one variable. Not the body. Not the nervous system wired for a specific flavor of anxiety that you have been managing in various ways since before you had language for it. Not the family. Not the culture. Not the country. Not the economic conditions. Not the particular combination of wounds your parents were carrying when they made you and handed you the invoice without knowing they were doing it. Into a crime scene that was already in progress. The evidence was already on the walls. Here is what makes it a crime scene specifically, and not just a difficult circumstance. A crime scene is not just a place where something bad happened. It is a place where something happened that left a pattern, evidence, residue, the shape of what occurred pressed into the surfaces of the room. And the work of the investigator is not to assign blame is for courts and egos, but to read the pattern accurately, to understand what actually happened here as opposed to the story that got told about what happened here. Your womb was the first room you were in, and that room had a pattern already pressed into it before you arrived. Your mother's unresolved material, your father's, their parents before them. The particular frequency of anxiety or rage or silence or need that ran through the lineage and found its next vessel in you. The things that were said in that house. The things that were never said. The way love was expressed, or withheld, or expressed as control, or expressed as absence. The specific texture of what safety felt like or failed to feel like in the earliest years, when the nervous system was still deciding what the world was and how much of it could be trusted. All of that was in the room before you had a single conscious thought. You did not create the crime scene. You were born into it. And then, and this is the cut that matters, you spent the rest of your life unconsciously recreating versions of it because the nervous system learns what home feels like in those first years, and then spends decades trying to return to that frequency, even when that frequency is painful. Especially when it is painful. Because painful and familiar reads as safe to a nervous system that learned its definition of safety inside a crime scene. Now, you said you are a man who prefers honesty over comfort, except on matters of family, where your heart might be weak. I am going to stay inside that admission for a moment, because it is the most important thing you said. The weakness of heart around family is not a flaw. It is evidence. It tells me that the crime scene I'm describing is not abstract for you. It is specific. It has faces. It has a particular kitchen, or a particular silence, or a particular version of love that came wrapped in something complicated that you have spent years trying to unwrap without losing what was real inside it. The heart goes weak around family because the family is where the original pattern lives. The people you love most are often the people most entangled with the evidence. And the Ginsu question, the one I will not spare you from because you asked me not to, is this. Not as accusation, as investigation. How much of what you call your personality is actually the adaptation you built to survive the specific conditions of that first room? How much of what you call your preferences and your values, and your ways of loving people, and your ways of keeping them at the precise distance that feels safe? How much of that was chosen, and how much of it was inherited from evidence on walls you were too young to read? You did not choose the crime scene, but you have been decorating around the evidence ever since. Every person does. The ones who suffer most are the ones who mistake the decoration for the truth. The ones who move through it are the ones who eventually get down on their knees and read what is actually written on the floor. The womb was the first crime scene because it is where the pattern began. Not the pattern of your fault, the pattern of your inheritance. Karma arriving not as punishment but as curriculum handed down through blood and breath, and the specific way your nervous system learned to organize itself around whatever love and danger looked like in that first room. Be a student of your own karma means, among other things, trace the pattern back to its origin, not to blame the origin, not to perform the wound, because you cannot renovate a building you refuse to look at honestly, and you cannot stop recreating the crime scene in every room you subsequently live in until you understand what was on the walls of the first one. Let's that sit. How is the wine?
It feels too real. I feel like I'm talking to myself. It was kind of the point of the project.